Hello. Greetings from Germany, from Thuringia, Germany to the world, and let me discuss the topic today. I would like to ask and discuss with you, the British, American and Commonwealth people, and basically with all the American and English speaking people, your President Donald Trump in America. I would hereby suggest to really reconsider your choice whether you want to keep him as your president or not. I have some really disturbing facts to present which I recommend should lead to the immediate removal and impeachment of this person in the position of US President. This message, of course, is also possibly of interest for the US Congress and for the Attorney General Jeff Sessions or his entire team. From my perspective, Donald Trump has violated the US Constitution in a number of points on a highly severe level. First of all, I would highlight to you that the election itself did not go according to the law, according to a whistleblower and independent journalist Greg Palast. His website is www.gregpalast.com. There was a heavy election fraud in a number of states, and one only has to go through the website of Mr. Palast to learn more about that. There were millions of votes, of voting papers which got missing, and until today nobody knows where these voting papers remained. A lot of those people who had similar names, their voting papers got stolen, or the machines got manipulated so that only one name got counted, even though possibly several people with the same name voted for this and this presidential candidate. But the people behind who control these voting machines, they sabotaged the system. They deleted votes in the millions, and that's absolutely unacceptable. But this is not enough. Let me go even deeper. From my perspective, this Mr. Donald Trump is a highly racist person. It's absolutely unheard of that a person in the 21st century in such a powerful position suppresses or ridicules a lot of foreign nationalities or people living with a different race inside of the United States. Mr. Trump has continuously been speaking against the black minorities. He has been speaking continuously against the Hispanic minorities, and he is basically suppressing and even insulting the entire Muslim world with basically most things that he's been doing on a daily basis. From my perspective, such a person with such with a lack for other cultures and other perspectives is not suitable for this very important and powerful position. I can remember, and you possibly can also remember, that during the election process, Mr. Trump has so much insulted the American basketball players that a number of them went public and openly spoke out against Mr. Trump because he really insulted them. It's unheard of that a president can demand this and that, or can tell to the national basketball team to do this and that, or to sing to the US Constitution when the individual player doesn't want to do that. America is built on a free choice. America is built on solid human rights and independent decisions, and a US president has no decision power whatsoever to criticize or disqualify a single American person, as Mr. Trump did in the past on various occasions. You might also remember that during some election campaign speeches, Mr. Trump has asked his security people to remove people within the audience. Like I remember there was a American black person, a woman, that shouted something that she didn't like, and then Mr. Trump said, get her out, and similar things happened all over the place. So this is not a democratic person, Mr. Trump. Also in his shows where he searched for young good entrepreneurs, that the shows took place in his Trump Tower, as you can recall a few years back. He has been treating people sometimes in a very, very bad and unfair way, like he has been saying, get out, your project didn't went well, forget about it, get out, bring him out. That's not the way that we deal with people in the 21st century. You can even be a trillionaire like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, but you're not allowed, according and under the US Constitution, or here in Germany under the German framework of laws, you're not allowed to treat a person like that. You can nicely ask the person to leave your private office, but this is basically the framework and the mindset in the way that this has to happen, and not this Western style, ego style, I'm the stronger one and get out or we'll kick you in the ass. This is not the way I'm used to, and that was not the way the US was meant to be. Now let me come to some even more important and relevant points where I'm going to accuse and have been already accusing Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump has been using and abusing his powerful position for private projects. It's a question, and I would really make a big question mark behind this point, whether Mr. Trump has not just gone for the election and for the position of president so that he could continue with his highly questionable oil projects. I would hereby like to mention the projects in North and South Dakota, the XXL pipeline, and a few other projects where the rural native Indian population has been demonstrating against these projects. A number of Indian chiefs from the Native American Indian population has openly spoken out against this. According to the US Constitution, these native territories are protected by the US Constitution, and no person and no US president whatsoever has the right to build his pipeline through such native territories. A US president in fact would have to oppose any of such projects in case they would been suggested by other companies, whether US or foreign companies. A US president has primarily the obligation to defend the US Constitution and not to violate and break the US Constitution himself. We have been used, of course, that US presidents have been breaking the US Constitution wherever they could, wherever they can. That started with Ronald Reagan. It continued with the Bushes, with the super criminal Bushes, George Bush 1 and George Bush 2, who were behind 9/11, and it continued then with the Clintons. It continued then with the Obamas in certain perspectives, and it's now peaking with Mr. Trump. I would suggest, from my observation, that Mr. Trump very well fits the person or the character that we have been dealing with in the Holy Bible and in the Muslim Islamic scriptures, as the person identified as the Antichrist or Dajjal, or how one could call him. It was this person predicted. This person got predicted as the one who puts himself above every law and that just makes the decision and thinks that he likes, and that who is not being considering the others and the law and the legal framework whatsoever. So please think about it. The American native territories actually only joined the Union upon the approval that they would forever be able to maintain their full independence. That would mean that meant, and that still means, that no foreign, no white American company, American president whatsoever, American congressperson would get the rights to enforce any legal decision upon these territories, including any private project, of course. Another very highly severe point is the fact that Trump has been sabotaging the investigation process into 9/11. If you count one and one together, if you look at the characters that Mr. Trump has been affiliating with, including his own family, his wife, his son-in-law, the Kushners, and they are all Jewish Zionist background. Now, if you have made the research on 9/11, as I have done so, you would immediately notice that Mr. Trump has been working with exactly those who have been who were behind 9/11. This includes the criminal Bushes, George Bush 1, George Bush 2. He has been regularly on the telephone, Mr. Trump, with Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu made a telephone call to Mr. Silverstein, and Mr. Silverstein telephoned with Michael Bloomberg from New York, the former mayor of New York, and they then agreed within a few minutes that the Twin Towers can be brought down. It was a controlled demolition. They used termites that they had installed in the towers, and they then detonated also a tiny nuclear bomb in the basements, as the many 9/11 investigation teams have brought to the light. And so Mr. Trump, who has been in touch with both Netanyahu, with Mr. Silverstein, with Mr. Bloomberg, and with the leadership of the American Zionist, American Israeli representative bodies, were behind 9/11. They simulated the whole attack. They brought it down in a controlled demolition according to the laws of the state of New York and of the city of New York. When you want to demolish a skyscraper, these explosive devices and the tiny nuclear bomb had actually been put at this place by the architects who constructed the Twin Towers for the Rockefeller family some 50 or 60 years ago, if you remember. The architects of these buildings actually had spoken out openly directly after 9/11 that the bomb that detonated, that melted the towers when they already started to collapse. There were temperatures in the thousands of degrees, and everything smoked and melted basically together. That could only be achieved by a tiny nuclear reaction, and this tiny nuclear bomb was put in this position directly during the construction process of these Twin Towers. It was the law at that time that some sort of bomb was required and was needed to build in the basement, implemented in the basement, for the later destruction once after 50 or 100 years, when these towers got too old, that it can easily be brought down. A president that continues to block and to focus on other topics so that people would not remember this very issue where the US actually got attacked, cannot be a US president. That's unheard of. The first thing that a US president would have to do, I already spoke that out during the Clintons, during the Obamas, during George Bush 2. The first thing that a US president would have to do would to declare that we're in exceptional critical moments, and that nothing more urgent has to be done but to find out who really did this 9/11 and who was behind and how the whole thing happened. There are many investigations from the local police, from the local architects, from people from all different kinds of organizations, private and public. They have openly spoken out, written documents, and said that everything was staged by the Zionist American white people who were in charge of these towers, in combination together with Benjamin Netanyahu from Israel, as I had said. And the two airplanes that one could see, these two airplanes were actually holograms. And if you also remember, there was, I think, the BBC or one of the programs, they showed the two airplanes allegedly hitting the towers, and they sent it to the world media and to all the TVs around the world, even before the airplanes actually, from the perspective of those who got cheated and blinded by the holograms directly in New York City, even before the airplanes hit. So that being said, let me come to the next point. Mr. Trump has also been violating a lot of international laws. He has been suppressing, he has been hindering the peace process in the Middle East. One of the presidents who has been greatly supporting this process was Mr. Clinton, Bill Clinton, who has been meeting with lots of people throughout Palestine, Israel, and the whole Middle East. Mr. Obama has also been trying to do a little bit, but interestingly, or not surprisingly, Mr. Trump has been doing nothing, but he has only been accusing this and that. Muslims or nations are the bad ones, and I stand behind Israel, and I make America great again. We, the whole world, we are great. There's no debate whether we are greater than Americans, or whether Americans are greater than the Germans, or whether the Americans are greater than the Chinese. Every human being is equivalent. We are all great, or we are all nothing. That's something that cannot be debated. That is clear. We don't need Donald Trump to tell us whether we are great or whether we are not. Great are those who do great things, and weak and bad are those who just accuse others and who do nothing. It's impossible that one person can make the decision, or can say, I make the decision that the new capital of Israel, that this is now Jerusalem. That's not within the framework of international procedures. That would be a decision, if at all, for the Jewish Israeli people, maybe together in cooperation with the Muslim people from Palestine and from the area. That would have to go through parliament in Israel. According to my information, 60 to 80% of the Israeli Jewish population rejected this decision from Donald Trump to move their capital from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So if you think that this went in a democratic, legal, correct way, then really reconsider your thinking, reconsider your decision, reconsider and consider what I have been telling you. Look and watch the Jewish Israeli media and watch the protests, speak to the Jewish people all around the world, to the English-speaking Jewish folks, to those in Europe, and they all tell you that this is a no-go what has been happening here. Mr. Netanyahu, once again, Mr. Trump, and all the billionaires, they made the decision for themselves, and they opposed their decision onto the world. They said, now this Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, and by the way, in the Bible, Jerusalem and Jesus, it's the most important thing. But no, we have the United Nations. The United Nations could have been consulted, even though Mr. Bush 1 and 2 maybe didn't consult the United Nations themselves, but that doesn't mean that Mr. Trump can make the decision on his own. Also, no, Mr. Trump would have to admit that previous presidents made a lot of mistakes, and he would have to be a better example, lead by example. But he's not leading by example, he's just doing the opposite. So I really ask the question, to which laws this Mr. Trump really bows down, whether he ever thinks of God. He says that he's from this or this Presbyterian, or what sort of church he has been going to. But if he would read the Bible, or if he would read any other scriptures like the Torah or the Quran properly, God or Allah He's demanding to bow down. He's demanding to live a righteous way. He's demanding to not put oneself in the foreground, to let the people decide and let the world be free. But Mr. Trump, he's imposing himself all the time. He's selling himself very well. He's the Antichrist, the Dajjal. He is deceiving lots of people. Millions of people are loving him, are supporting him. He looks very nice. His headdress perfect. Everything goes according to his will. But my dear friends and people and brothers and sisters worldwide, where are we in this Trump scenario? We are completely excluded. We can read the news, we watch the newspapers, we watch the news, we read the newspapers, and it's always about Mr. Trump and his partner Vladimir Putin, Trump as his partner Angela Merkel. They are all the same type of characters. Angela Merkel stole the election, President Putin stole the election. President Putin, being a KGB spy, actually stole the oil company in Russia. Then with this basement, he worked himself up, stealing and taking all the power until he got the position of president. Whether he did this together with the Romanov dynasty in Russia or not, I've been in contact with a lot of Russian people, and they have been telling me it's unheard of what President Putin has been doing over there. He has turned and changed Russia and the US and the Russian Federation into a militaristic sort of dictatorship. Possibly he has brought a lot of stability and wealth, but the Russian people, they all feel overgone. They don't like that they have one strong person, and without Putin, Russia is nothing. Russia was meant to turn into a democracy where every opposition person can have a say, where we have possibly no military anymore at all. The reason why Angela Merkel and this illegal European Union has been supporting NATO and enforcing NATO, and now Trump has also been enforcing NATO, and Putin has been feeling attacked by that, and therefore as a consequence has to deal with this issue and has to upgrade the Russian military. And that's a game that all these three sides play, and they want to brainwash us. We people like me and my friends, we have been dreaming of a world where peace and fairness and brotherhood can be lived, can be expressed, and can be felt, and can be lived. We the people have to live. We have to live our visions, like the civil rights leaders, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Jesus, and many others. They did live their vision on a daily basis. They shared everything. They spoke about civil rights. They helped each other in the court cases. They brought all these topics to the daylight every day. But under Mr. Donald Trump, under Putin, under Angela Merkel, they sent the police if you openly speak out, if you express your opinion, and the police or the sheriffs go after you. So I really ask you, where are our liberties, our civil liberties? Where have our constitutional rights remained? And one can even feel the power and suppression from both Trump and Mr. Putin here in Germany. All what we want to do, we the German people, we get blocked by both Russia and by the European Union, by Angela Merkel and by Mr. Trump. It's people like me who wanted to have a democratic, free world with more cohesion, where we work together as the people, communities and community projects. People like me, we feel even pushed further down. Most of the projects here and the family things, they get broken down with the help of the authorities. There is no more working and melting together, but just the opposite, getting destroyed. More capitalism, more competition, and more loneliness as a result. Yeah. I also think that, now coming to my next point, that Mr. Trump has been using his position in violation of the US Constitution particularly when he has been now creating new executive orders. The word executive order is actually can only be used in an exceptional circumstance. Now that the US is at war with all terrorists in the world at the same time is something very exceptional. But I really wanted to know who are these terrorists. Like the laws that George Bush 1 and 2 brought forth, they are like the Patriot Act. They are absolutely unacceptable, undemocratic, and they cannot be. They should not be continued. Excuse me, I have to shut down my telephone. They have to be stopped. Executive orders can only a situation where a US president can declare emergency and express and speak out his executive orders. That's only in a wartime situation. Now with Mr. Trump probably being the Antichrist, the Dajjal, and being in competition and at war with the whole world and declaring all the people in the world as potential terrorists is absolutely it's a shame. It's absolutely a disgrace. I feel not honored and not respected and treated as somebody equal. I can even feel this over here in Germany. If I would go to America, the officers might question me, might interrogate me, might even imprison me and suspect me for being this or that, just for my opinion. A free, tolerant America would allow any opinion, would allow anybody who has a good mindset. I'm not a destructive person. My faith is really broad. I accept and I understand that Muhammad, this person in the Middle East, in Mecca and Medina, did exist. I even consider and can consider him as a prophet, as one more person that got sent by God and Allah to show the people of that time and also to show us in these times that one has to live on a financially small level, that one has to defend the faith and believe in one God, that one has to share and live with the poor, that one should not really follow too much capitalism, that one should engage in community things. That are some of the key messages that derive from the Quran and from the teachings of Muhammad, peace be upon him. But too few Americans, too few people in Europe even think about it. And with Mr. Trump in this powerful position, showing all the world that we are living the Christian dream, he's not really coming down to the ground, to the bottom, where we are standing, where King Martin Luther King, where John F. Kennedy, and where Abraham Lincoln, where all these former presidents stood, or Jackson. They said we need to get rid of the Federal Reserve Bank. It's a private bank. We need to start to work together as American people and start to build up America. We need to how to implement a real American free currency. John F. Kennedy already produced the greenback dollar, as you can read in the books about state and nation and statehood. A real currency would have require the signature of both the U.S. president and the Treasury, the leader of the Treasury Department, or the Minister for Finance. It cannot be produced by a private consortium that is now being sold to the public as the Federal Reserve Bank. That's absolutely unacceptable, and Donald Trump as a president would have to work on such topics. John F. Kennedy said we need to abolish this private federal consortium called the Fed, which is run by Rothschild, the Rockefellers, the Warburgs, and there's also a connection to the Windsors and to the Habsburgs in Austria. The US president would have to help his country and his nationalist people to get a more free and a more stable and a more homogeneous community. But Mr. Trump has been using this cartel, this financial oligarchy, to even get more power to exercise more power worldwide and in America. He has been using it against the minorities, against all those nations that he himself has been competing throughout his life. Mr. Trump has always been disrespecting the Asians, disrespecting the Hispanics, the blacks. He has always been a better person. He has been born a millionaire and built up with the millions an empire, and he actually lost most of it shortly before the elections. A decade or so, Mr. Trump was bankrupt. He was bankrupt, and he got indebted, and then some Zionist banks gave him some loans, and with these loans he bought everything. Mr. Trump, if you look closely, he's still in the red numbers. He's still indebted, and he bought the elections at the same time. So he took 2 steps and 3 steps at the same time, and he has been hoping that with all the power and glamour and all the propaganda and TV and Zionist media, world media supporting him, that he could take even step 5 and step 6 and show us how great a leader he is. But people like me, we take 1 step at a time. We have been going slowly. We have not been rushing, and we don't want elephants like Mr. Trump who take 5 steps at a time and who then turns his head and laughs at us and shouts, "Come on, go faster and be stronger." No, we wanted to work together in a community. We wanted to live the German dream. We wanted to live the American dream. We didn't want to, and I don't want to have war and war and war and Mr. Trump telling this and that what we have to do in the world. No. The decision to, for example, to make Jerusalem the capital of Israel, that's a decision of the people in this region, not the decision of the US president. And what we do in Europe, it's our decision. It's not the decision of the US president. And what the Russian people want to do, like many people, they live on farms in Russia. They want to live in a community. They don't want to have a Mr. Putin upgrading the military and bringing Russia every day to the front of war in Syria. Putin is in Syria. Putin has been using Bashar al-Assad as a bastion, as a military point, so that he would be able to counterbalance the American overweight in this world. It's like we're dealing here with a lot of big elephants, the world powers, and they consider this world as their playing ground, and we the people in America, we the people in Germany, we the people in Russia, we the people in China, we feel completely overrun. We're not allowed to enter the United Nations because only the selected ones, they run the show. We're not allowed to speak out in our parliaments. We're not allowed to change things on a bigger level because these oligarchs, I would call them, these capitalist elephants, they control everything. And with their financial power and their new world order, as George Bush already mentioned it some 20 years ago at the United Nations, they are the placeholders. They are the wolves, or they are the bosses, and they say, this is our place, this is our system, and you do what we say, or we send the police. No. This world was actually, after World War II, it was meant just the other way around. It was meant, that's how our basic law and the control council laws for Germany were constructed and imposed on Nazi-like ideologies that existed in Germany in order to suppress and get rid of these wrong ideologies. We wanted, America and Russia and the Allies wanted Germany to grow up in form of a democracy, to show the world how we the people and democratic values can be lived and can be multiplied in the world. However, now the Allies and now currently the American President Mr. Trump has been living not by example. He has been doing just the opposite. He's behaving like Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was even more cooperative with the people. Yes, it's not a good situation. I would also want Mr. Trump to really let the US states be free and let them make their own decisions. According to the US Constitution, The US president can, by the way, only be elected by the representatives of the individual states. That's the law. Even if the majority of the American people would have voted for Trump, that's unlawful, that's unconstitutional, because the Constitution, it says that the US president has to be voted by the Congress people that represent each and every state. That's the law. Either we follow the law or we don't follow the law. Mr. Trump has been trying to overrule the court decisions from the various courts with regard to immigration of Muslim people, immigration of foreigners. But the courts, they have to be regarded as we have separation of powers, and the courts, they are one line of power, and they can make their own decision. The US president is not above it all, and it's not like a god who stands above it all and nullifies what he doesn't like. No, if the court says like that, then the president has to bow down to it. That's the power of a court. Now either we want the separation of powers, or we say no, we don't want it, and we just want like a person like Kim Jong-un in Korea, and he is the super god who makes all the decisions. But we don't want that, do we? But Kim Jong-un is another issue. We would have to first figure out why Kim Jong-un turned the way he turned out to be. If we in the Western world during the last 60 years only had dictatorships that put the world upside down, that destroyed and invaded each and every Muslim country, in Somalia, in Libya, attack in Iraq, attack in Syria, you name it all, and then how can you expect from Asian countries or other countries that they would live by example? They have even been getting so worried and afraid of all these Western trends in the West that they also turned into dictatorships. So I would hereby repeat my request to really think of not removing and impeaching Mr. Donald Trump. Mr. Donald Trump is not fitting into the concept of a democratic US president, no matter whether he is from the National Party or from the Democratic Party or from the Greens. If you remember, during the elections there were a few other people who have been competing against Mr. Donald Trump. There were a lot of other good candidates who were much more on the ground. Let me add one more thing. We here in Germany were still, as I had indicated, under occupation status by America and Russia and the Allies, and also Mr. Trump has not really been dealing and bringing this topic to the front and onto the table. We Germans, we don't want to remain occupied for the rest of our lives. President Obama has already told us during his visits when he came here in 2013-14 that he and the military will be continuing to keep Germany under US occupation until 2099. One could argue, well, that's required because Russia is a threat, so-called threat. Maybe Putin is a threat, but not Russia and the Russian people. Maybe China is a threat, and we need this strong, powerful European Union to work as a military bastion and a forefront to protect America against all these Middle Eastern, Russian and Asian developments. But we have democratic values here, and the Allies and America asked us to build a democratic society. We the people, they gave us the Grundgesetz, the basic law, and it says that we the people in Germany and in France and basically in all of Europe, we can make our own decisions. We can say where we want our country to go. We don't want a militarized country. We don't like the American nuclear bombs in Ramstein, in all throughout Germany. We don't like it. You can come, take them and send them over back to you. You can also destroy these bombs here in German destruction factories. We would agree to that, but we don't like your military here. We don't, and I don't see Russia as a threat. and I don't see Mr. Putin as a personal threat. I don't consider him as a legitimate president, but I already wrote my concerns to him. I wrote to Mr. Putin already that he shouldn't just send bombs onto Syrian hospitals and Syrian schools, and he shouldn't attack the Muslim people, because the root of all, the cause of all the problems, the root is not the Muslim people. The true terrorists are the Americans, the white Zionists, who have been behind 9/11, behind the attacks in London, behind the attacks in Istanbul, in Ankara, behind the staged event in 2016 on the German Christmas market, where Zionists, CIA, FBI, and basically all forces worked together, including NATO Operation Claudius C, people to stage that the truck that allegedly went through the Christmas market, but it didn't go through. It stayed on the main road. It followed the left curve, and in the middle, in the half distance, it got navigated back directly at the market, and then it got parked, and no driver could be found. Anis Amri, he wasn't even in Germany at that time. Anis Amri got accused to be the alleged one who captured the truck, stole the truck from this Polish company Zurawski, hijacked the truck and murdered and drove with the truck through the Christmas market and murdered more than 20 people. So there were a lot of dash cams and cars and people filming the whole scene. The cars who were waiting at the corner from the right, coming from the right, in front of the Christmas market, they had dash cams, cameras in front, in the mirror in the front, and they filmed the truck, and you could see the truck pass left by the Christmas market. It didn't go through. The truck had a height of 4 meters 20, and the lights and decoration of the Christmas market was at 3 meters 60. If the truck would have gone through, it would have pulled it all down, but nothing got pulled down. All the Christmas market decoration continued to hang. The lights were not even shaking, and then the panic on the market. There was panic. The people created the panic. The actors who created the panic, they actually stayed. They were brought to the market in the yellow bus that parked directly at the left side at the beginning of the Christmas market. They ran out and they pulled what they could and threw it on the floor, and they said, "Oh, we got hit by the truck, and the truck just went through," but there was no truck going through. There was not even a single piece of drop of blood on the entire Christmas market. Believe me, if a truck would rush with 60 to 80 miles per hour through the Christmas market, like the truck you could see on the dash cams from the cars and the amateur videos, the truck had a velocity of 60 to 80 kilometers per hour. If I would have driven this truck with this velocity, I would have really created a mess. You wouldn't believe it. The heads and the bodies, they would rip apart, and the blood would be like in World War II. It would be everywhere, and the Christmas market, the sales hoods where they sold the stuff, the restaurants and all this on the Christmas market, the individual shops, I would hit them on the left and right side, and they would collapse. I would rush through them. It would be a total mess. But this Christmas market, everything was in order. No single sales shop was really hit and damaged. Not one person was killed, and that's why the German Banana Federal Republic of Germany government, it's just a corporation. It's just the same like the US corporation. It's a banana republic, and it's not a real government. And they didn't declare a day of mourning, a national day of mourning for the 20 or more dead people. No, they didn't do it because there were no dead people. But who did it? The Polish government did it, because the Polish truck driver got killed by the Zionists and all the other Secret Service agents who stole the truck, who first killed this truck driver and at the parking space nearby, took his truck and then rushed through or past the Christmas markets to stage the whole thing. That's what happened here in Germany, and then the world media said, and the Jewish propaganda machine, they said, "Oh, it was the terrible Anis Amri, this migrant from Algeria or from Africa with a Muslim background, and he was it just like Osama bin Laden who did 9/11 and Mohammed Atta who did 9/11. and then they found the passport of Anis Amri. It was lying exactly outside of the truck on the road. Anis Amri forgot it, or it was somewhere in the truck in a casket. He forgot it. He had everything with himself, his money, his purse, his keys, but he forgot his passport. How stupid do you think we are? How stupid do you think this Anis Amri really is? Anis Amri, first of all, he didn't even have a driver's license. Not an Algerian one, not a Moroccan one, not a German one. He couldn't even drive a car, he couldn't even drive a truck. And to drive a truck, I tell you, it's not that easy. And the same with Muhammad Atta and Osama bin Laden. All these passports, they got found on the streets in New York. And the airplanes that allegedly hit the towers, nothing could be found from them. They all melted together, like not even a tiny part of them could be found. A wheel was found next to another building, but this belonged to a Cessna, to a smaller plane, but not to a big Boeing 737. But the 20 passports from the hijackers, these passports, they got found in the ashes. The ashes had a temperature of hundreds and even thousands of degrees because a nuclear bomb was detonated at 9/11. And these passports survived the fire and the detonation. Don't you think that's very, very mysterious? Don't you think that the American authorities, police and investigative teams, that they all not really took this matter seriously? Don't you think they really cheated you? I think they cheated you all, and I think they also cheated me. They cheated us in all these staged false flag events. Another false flag event was Charlie Hebdo in Paris, or the Boston Marathon. It was all staged in Paris a few years ago. The actors, the same actors like the actors that they use on a continuous basis, they had tomato ketchup and artificial blood beneath their pullovers, and then suddenly somebody shoot with a gun, play gun, and then the actors put themselves on the road. They cried, "Oh, I got hit!" They put up their pullover, and one could see the artificial blood. But I had some friends and some people that I know who were in the area. They watched it all, and they saw that not a single bullet got shot, and that it was all staged. And if you do some research, you can find videos and information on that on YouTube and throughout the internet and in books. Rothschild actually bought this newspaper, Charlie Hebdo. So they want, with this staged event, they increased the readership, the people who read this magazine, a millionfold. We have Rothschild, Rockefeller, and these dynasties. Churchill was a Rothschild, Hitler was a Rothschild, a quarter Rothschild. Hitler didn't want to play their game anymore. John F. Kennedy came from these secret society families, and he didn't want to play the game anymore. He said, I don't want it anymore. I want to know what NASA has been doing, because the moon landing was fake. He wanted to know what's going on in space and why the secrecy. He wanted to stop the Vietnam War. He wanted to make peace. He was working for the people of America, for the people of the world. He wanted to implement a real U.S. currency, and Mr. Trump is not doing all of that. Mr. Trump has been putting himself above all these things that a US president would have to do. Please, therefore, US Congress, US attorneys, people of America, people of the world, please really think about whether you want to have such a man in position, in power, or whether you don't want to rather make a change and find a better, more suitable person for this. I also let me end with a prayer. Dear God, Allah, we don't want further suppression. We want more democracy. Please help us. Inshallah, there will be a change. Let also the US president wake up. Let him reconsider his human behavior, the way he has been acting and appearing on the world stage. Maybe he is able to understand how people like me feel, how we think, and maybe we can get a peaceful solution now. We don't want a World War III, what has happened in Syria. That was terrible enough. We need somebody. I want Donald Trump to reconsider his approach and his thinking about the Muslims, about the people with Hispanic background, with black American background, with Asian background, with German background, that he considers us as equal human beings. We all have a say. We don't want him as a dictator, and we also not dictators ourselves. We just want to look each other in the face and come closer together. I consider each and everybody as a human being who has the right to exist, and this I also demand and require from a person that calls himself the US president. I would also require this, of course, from somebody who calls himself the Israeli president, and I would want an Israeli president to do exactly what the people who live in this area demand, and not just do what he himself or what the big money financial powers like Rothschild, Rockefeller in the world demand. I also demand this from the Spanish authorities. If you remember, before Christmas we had the Catalanians who demanded a referendum, and they voted for that they want to leave Spain under these circumstances, that they don't want to be part of this Spanish democracy anymore. They want to be independent, and they have a right for that. They all voted that they want to exit Spain and the Spanish framework, like the British have been intending to do their Brexit, and we have to respect this. It's the will of the people. Okay, God bless you. Allah bless you all. Peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for listening. Bye bye.